Somebody's going to quote you 5 figures to build a RAG system so your AI knows your business. There's a chance you need it, but there's a better chance a free option would have been more accurate, and people selling you the expensive one probably isn't going to tell you that. So today, the 3 questions that tell you which one you actually need and why the most expensive mistake in this whole category is using RAG for something it was never built to do, and where a well-organized set of files beats a fancy version outright.
Hey guys, I'm Paul.
I'm Ryan.
Welcome to the Blueprint Automation Systems. Welcome back to the AI Dictionary, where we're taking one piece of AI jargon and trying to put it into plain English for you guys. Last episode, we went through prompting. The honest conclusion with it's how you ask that matters a lot less than what the AI can see when you ask it. That's where we pick up today. So today's episode, we've been promising since episode 2, which is how you get your actual business knowledge inside your AI tool. Your pricing, your policies, your schedule, your location, your clientele, the way you answer the phone, and the way that you draft emails. And we're going to be widening that scope on purpose because most AI consultants in the space talk about a really expensive RAG system that they built. Like it's the only way to do this. It isn't. This is the one, it's one of about 6, and it's picking the wrong one that can be turn a very, very simple problem into a 5-figure invoice that may not actually solve your problem completely.
Yep. Yeah. So really quick catch up on terms. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Right. I'll put the definition up on the screen below as a quick refresher. The AI knows the internet, right? It knows nothing about you specifically. RAG is the setup where right before it answers your question, it goes and grabs a relevant chunk of your documents and hands them over so the answer comes from your stuff instead of its imagination. So 2 things we already said that still kind of hold true. It's not training. You're handing it a cheat sheet and not teaching it really anything. And a grounded answer beats an answer from memory, which is the whole hallucination conversation that we had in, I believe it was like episode 6, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much the definition of a RAG, right? Is it's going to go out to a bunch of files you have stored, find the thing it needs, pull it back, reference it, use it to answer your question, and then it's going to shove it right back in that file drawer. Right. So here's the part that nobody really covers, which is when you should and should not be using it.
All right, guys, before you spend dollar number 1, ask one thing about the question that you want the AI to answer. Is the answer a fact, a passage, a behavior? Those 3 need completely different plumbing to get you to the correct answer, and they get mixed up constantly. So a fact is something with exactly one right answer. Are we open on Saturday? What are your hours on Saturday? Did this customer pay last time? Is that invoice still open? How many spots are left in the 6:30 class? Those are 1 for 1, very simple. A passage is something written down within a document somewhere. What is our policy about refunds? What did we agree to in that contract? What did that employee handbook say about calling out sick? A behavior is not information. It's how you want the AI to act. Always answer in our voice, Ryan's voice, his humanizer skill we talked about in the last episode. Always get a member's number first if you're an AI agent. Never say kids martial arts, say kids jiu-jitsu in my academy. These are 3 different things, and almost every expensive mistake in this category is somebody using the tool built for one of them on an answer needed for a different one. And that's the thing you got to be very conscious of if you're not savvy on this naturally. But of course you're watching the AI Dictionary, so we're trying to get you guys more savvy.
That's right, exactly. So to go back to those 3 things, right? So if you're going to ask your AI tool a question and the answer you're expecting back is a fact, you don't want a system that searches for something similar, which is kind of what a RAG does. You want a system that looks it up specifically. There's a difference, and it matters more than anything else in this episode. RAG works on similarity, right? So it goes into all of your stuff and it finds the paragraphs or the documents that most resemble what you asked it. That's a great way to find the section of a policy that you need. It's a terrible way to answer are we open Saturday at 10, right? Because there's one correct answer and it changed possibly 40 minutes ago. Right. So what you want there is a direct connection into whatever system already holds that truth. Right. It might be your booking software, it might be your calendar, it might be your point of sale system or your CRM. The AI asks that system and reads back what it says. And that's not retrieval, and that's what exactly is the point for this, right? This is pretty much the single most common and most expensive mistake we see. Somebody dumps a snapshot of the schedule into a RAG system, and now the AI is confidently telling customers about availability from a month ago when that was put into the RAG system. So the gut check here is pretty easy. If a human in your shop would answer it by opening up an app or your scheduler, rather than reading a binder or a file stored on your computer somewhere, don't use RAG for that.
Passages are what RAG was actually built for. Okay, you've got a big pile of documents. Somebody asks a question and the useful answer is buried somewhere in paragraph 37. That's where the RAG comes into play, right? So policies, contracts, manuals, warranty terms, the 11-page textbook that you don't really want to read on how the stereo instructions function. Onboarding a doc that nobody has read since 2019, that's the job of this part of the AI, right? It earns its money when the pile is genuinely large or genuinely messy or convoluted and you don't really want to memorize the whole thing. Hundreds of documents, inconsistent names, nobody knows what's in there anymore because that person's moved on. Where it can go wrong is worth knowing so you can spot it. It can, this is the pressure testing thing we talk about significantly often here. It can hand back the wrong 3 paragraphs and answers really confidently, as we talked about that before. And it never really sees the whole document, only the slice that it found and grabbed, so it might miss the exception written on page 12. And because it chops your documents into chunks, a sentence that started on one chunk and finished on a next can come back meaning something that you never really meant, implied, or specifically wrote. So it's really good. Likely the right tool for the job, not magic, right? It's not actually what's in your head. It's a librarian who may stop reading at page 9 because they think they found the right answer, just like a high school kid.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're speaking from experience.
It's like I'm speaking from experience.
Now, behaviors, right? They're really just instructions, right? So if what you're looking for is a behavior, no retrieval system on earth is going to help you, right? And people spend real money learning that. So how you want it to sound, or what it should always ask first, or what it's never allowed to say, those are instructions. You write it down once in the setup files and it applies to every answer you get back. So that's kind of like last episode's whole point, and that's free. So before anybody sells you anything, check whether the thing you're unhappy about is actually just a rule you never wrote down. And the far end of the behavior right here is fine tuning. So where you can bake a style or a personality into the model itself, we'll talk about that a lot more in a later episode where you can kind of give your AI tool a specific personality. But if ultimately you're trying to get your AI tool to behave in a certain way and it's not doing the things you want it to do, it's likely just your memory or your instructions and not like, oh no, I need a RAG to search through a bunch of information that I have.
Right. All right, let's talk about all the options. And we're going to walk into this as a spectrum, cheapest and most simple first. I'm going to keep it really, really straightforward to you. So, number 1, just paste it in. You take the document, drop it into the chat. I have done this, cost you nothing other than because you already put that work in, it's sunk cost. Works right now, and it works as a one-off question where the right answer more often than anybody wants to admit it is right there. You just don't want to go digging. It does fall apart when the document is enormous or that you're doing it every single day.
Yeah, and right, like we talk about we talked in the last episode a lot about context engineering versus prompt engineering, and making sure you're giving it context is the right thing to do. And you can do that with like an email, or hey, like read this email and give me an answer back based on this email. But when you start looking at these big, massive piles of documents, or you need an answer from 5 different sources, that's where that's going to fall apart, right? The second use case of this, right, is handing the tool a permanent set of files, right? So uploading your pricing sheet and your policies once into a project or a custom assistant, or or in a second brain, we'll talk about that in a second, and it reads those every single time. And we're going to talk about that a lot more in the next episode. But for most owners watching this is probably where your story can stop, right? It's for most small business owners, not a lot of employees. This is a perfectly acceptable free way to get AI to do what it is you want it to do without spending a ton of money.
Option 3, an organized file search. This one is really underrated. AI gets an index, sees really honest file names, and opens the one that it needs. It's reading a filing cabinet instead of guessing which drawer feels the closest to it. We talked about that librarian before. Works beautifully right up until your name and your organization gets sloppy, and then it doesn't work at all. I have experienced this one.
Yeah, and just to be clear, right, option 3, that's pretty much like what Paul and I are using, and that's what's commonly referred to as a second brain, right? And we use what's called like an LLM wiki style second brain, and we talk about that more in later episodes. But ultimately, it's got instructions, so your AI goes and looks at the front of your filing cabinet, and says, "Oh, I'm looking for a document that starts with A through F, or G through whatever the letters are there, right?" And you open that drawer up, and there's another series of instructions. Like if you're looking for this, there's like a table of contents at each of those phases. So your AI just knows, oh, go here, go here, go here. Oh, the file's down here.
Right.
And it can still find a lot of what it needs without a super expensive RAG system. Speaking of RAG, that's number 4. And RAG, and I'm going to also toss like vector searching into this. And you don't actually need to know what any of those terms really means, but it's basically that similarity engine that we just talked about. So it's the right answer for a big, messy pile of documents, but it's overkill for anything smaller. And when I say big, messy pile of documents, I'm talking like big enterprise level corporations with like 50-page onboarding documents and a standard operating procedure binder of files. Like we're talking a excessive amount of stuff, where naming convention probably hasn't been followed super well and things like that. And that's where the RAG is really good at, like looking into a document and seeing what's in there and finding similar terms. And it kind of whittles its way through this big pile of stuff to find that needle in the haystack it's looking for.
Number 5, a keyword search, right? Sometimes dressed up as a hybrid, literally matching on names, part numbers, SKUs, policy titles, things along that lines. It's really worth you guys knowing that a fair amount what gets sold today as a RAG is really just this in a trumped up, caped up costume. This isn't a scandal. Sometimes it is the actual better tool, but you should know which one you are paying for and not getting kind of hooked on something that you're not getting because you don't honestly need it.
Yeah, exactly. And the 6th one is kind of going towards when you want those facts, right? And it's a direct connection to the system of record. It's a lookup. It's not an information retrieval. And that's the whole reason this kind of belongs on the list. It's still a way to go out and get an answer to a question, but it doesn't need a big database of files to do that. It just needs to go to your CRM and say, when's the last time this person came in, or whatever that answer is.
Now, if you notice the order, 3 of the things cost you absolutely nothing, right? There's no expense whatsoever other than your time and some organizing, right? And we understand your time is worth money, but it doesn't cost you dollars at the door, and that makes a big difference to me as a business owner. So when a proposal that you're being served starts at number 4, the fair and correct question for you to ask is, what happened to 1, 2, 3, and why can't I use those first? You probably, I hope, in watching our series, have started that, and maybe you're starting to recognize, as you said, enterprise level, or maybe you are multiple locations, you have 30 years of data that's updated. Maybe there's a reason for you to go into that, but I'm gonna call it my fellow business owners here. You got to do the legwork first. It might solve most of your problems.
And you can start with 1, 2, and 3. Like, start with 1. Feed it a document every time you need an answer. When that starts getting annoying, move to number 2, right? And start feeding it more, storing it in memory, things like that. When you get to number 3, build a second brain. And I really think most people running any business should just start with number 3, right?
Honestly,
like
I agree.
at the end of the day, 1 and 2 are just stopgaps because you're just learning AI and it's a good entry level foot in the door type of thing. But ultimately, to use AI successfully in a small business, just make a second brain and be done with it. And that second brain that we just talked about, the things that we've been setting up for our business, it's free. And we'll go into how to set that up. There's a prompt for it. There's already documentation online that you literally copy and paste, and it will start the framework for the second brain. And all of that's free. It's just your time setting that up. And then once you've used your second brain for a while, you'll start seeing the warts on when it can't find things. And when that happens, you can either spend some time just auditing your file names and the organization and the indexing, which will fix that problem, or that is when you might want to start leveraging a RAG. And a RAG and a second brain are 2 separate things, and we're going to talk about that right now.
Or you can burn tokens saying, we've done this before, go find it.
Yeah, that too, yes.
Which I have done.
Oh, yes, 100 times. Many.
We've discussed this, go figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And it does.
Yeah.
It does. It'll burn tokens, but it'll do it.
So let's talk about second brain versus RAG for a little bit, because a lot of people mix these up and use these terms interchangeably, and they are 2 very different things, right? So you're going to hear second brain and RAG either sometimes used like they're competitors, like I only need a second brain or I only need a RAG, or worse, that they're the same thing, right? So they're neither. They're 2 very different layers, and mixing them up is how business owners end up paying for the wrong one, right? So a second brain is what you keep. It's the collection of stuff. It's the collection of files. It's the collection of knowledge about your business. It's what you decided, what is worth writing down, how it's organized, and how things are named, and what links to what, okay? The RAG is how a machine finds the right slice of all of that at the moment somebody asks a question. It's the search. It's the search engine. It's your Google search on top of your second brain, and not the collection of stuff. So it's important to understand the second brain is your storage, and the RAG is the machine that lets you search that storage.
Right. You have the ability to run a RAG on top of a second brain. You can also run a second brain with no RAG anywhere near it, and plenty of businesses really should be doing that. Ultimately, it's what I'm doing right now. Will I progress to a RAG? Maybe. We'll see if I need it or not as a single proprietor, single location. At the size most of you guys are operating at, like me, a well-organized knowledge base really removes the need for a RAG entirely. I haven't felt the need for it really at all yet, because organizing does the trick that the similarity math would sometimes be guessing at. So I don't find that need. Good names and a real index lets the AI walk to the right file. Ryan's the AI building that he's doing. He talks very simply, here's your file system. If you want to put another one inside it, go ahead, and then it has access to that file and it can find all the stuff underneath it. That's the basic system. If you guys haven't started watching those videos, go back and watch them. This is explained in there step by step. Fuzzy search estimates on which drawer feels the closest. If you've done the work up front, you don't need the estimate. RAG really becomes necessary when the pile gets so big or so messy just to name, and that's really the point, and plenty of businesses do hit it. Just make sure you've hit that before you start paying for it. You may need it. You may need to pay someone for us for it, but you might not need it at the beginning.
Yeah, and ultimately, when your second brain starts getting a little bit too messy or the naming convention is off, I'm not saying go open up all of that information and start typing in new file names.
Right.
Leverage your AI tool to, like, I'll prompt my AI tool from time to time, hey, I want you to go into my second brain and I want you to audit it. And I want you to see where there's overlap of information, where there's missing information, where files aren't linking to the other files. And if you've set up your second brain properly, typically it handles a lot of that up front when you ingest the information. But over time, things get messy, things get moved and touched and stuff like that. Your AI tool can just help you clean up that second brain data, and then all the connections are back. So that RAG is really necessary when that pile gets big.
Right.
And if you're sitting there thinking like you actually want to build one of those, guess what? That's a different show. And we are doing the whole build on screen in the Build Your Own AI operating system series that I'm working on, or we're working on. I'm recording them. But that's the one that's coming, and I think that's actually next week's show is the second brain. So that'll be out probably next Tuesday. So go check that one out if you want to see how to set up a second brain, and I can teach you it in 20 to 30 minutes.
If you want to be part of the ongoing conversation about this, we have a school, SKOOL community. Link's going to be down below in the comments. This is where you're going to see us building out in front, working on it together. As I mentioned, small business owner, I'm running a brick and mortar and playing in this world. Ryan gets to play in this world a lot more than I do, so I'm playing catch up too, like you guys are in the real world. Probably a little bit ahead of you. I keep getting questions from my other small business owner friends, but this is where the conversation is going to live. So go jump over. It costs nothing to join our school community. And you will be, there are a lot of resources there for you guys as well.
And you have access to us. So if you run into a problem, like hit me up and we'll work through that problem together and figure out a solution. So static copy versus the live source of information or the source of truth, right? So one more thing to check on before anybody builds something for you, and it's the question that kind of ages badly if nobody asks it. Is the tool reading a copy of something, or is it reading the actual true source? So for example, right, if somebody loaded a copy of your pricing into a system back in March, let's just say it's June or July, right? Oh, it is actually June.
July.
No, it's July. No, it's July. Jeez,
We're in July.
I don't know what month it is, right? So anyway, months ago, somebody uploaded a copy of your pricing, right? And that's your March pricing forever until a human goes and updates it, right? And so nothing about your system is going to look broken or out of date. It's just going to be wrong. And AI will look at that information and confidently answer that question wrong to customers unless it sees a change on the document in the future, right? Where a live connection to a piece of information or a source of truth can't do that. It's going to ask the actual system every single time and get whatever's true today, right now, and give that answer to your clients, which is what you want for certain things.
So the question for a vendor is really simple. A vendor being an AI agent vendor. When my prices change on Monday, what has to happen for this system to know? If the answer is that somebody re-uploads a file, that's a chore for you to now do forever, and you should be pricing that into your decision, right? I'm constantly changing the stuff in my academy, not sweeping, but small little nuancy stuff, and it's easier, I will say this, it's easier for me to teach it to the AI than it is to my 20 staff members. We've got a whole episode later coming this season on AI quietly working from the old information, and that is the problem, except pointed at your own business instead of the internet.
Yeah, we talked about, AI being trained on information, and that information isn't specific to your business. Well, guess what? Your AI can be trained on your business with wrong information, and it's still just as crap. Right. So,
Outdated.
Or outdated,
Yeah,
sure, right.
Especially if you did it. All right, you guys ready for homework? If you're a business owner, you're used to this.
Yeah.
All right, so right now, write down the 10 questions that your team or your customers get asked the most, okay? Then go back and mark each one as a fact. We're open on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. A passage, meaning a policy, or a behavior, something responsive. That sort of takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes. The facts to point to whatever system already knows the answers to, right? Don't let anybody put those into a document. The behaviors get written down as rules. Free today, no vendor required, very, very simple. What's left is your passages, and that's the only pile anybody should be quoting you a price on. It's usually smaller than you probably expected.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about our favorite topic, the risk rating, right? And I'm going to put this one right in the middle, like medium, yellow, whatever you want to call it. Nothing here really blows up on day one, right? But over time, it can get slowly worse. So this is why it earns kind of a yellow medium risk instead of a green low risk. Risk one is your own documents, right? So if the source is wrong, the AI repeats it confidently, and now it's wrong in your voice to a customer, right? Risk number two is pointing it at the wrong folder or the wrong source of information. So if it can reach the drive with the payroll file in it, that content can show up in an answer. Right? So I want to say that again because that's pretty important, right?
Yep.
You give your AI tool access to something it might use that something in an answer to your customer. So if you don't want your customer knowing about your payroll, then you need to organize it in a way so it's not leveraging information you don't want it to leverage, right? So give it the least it needs to know to perform your tasks, right? Risk 3, and this is kind of that slow burn one, right, is a stale copy that nobody re-uploads, nobody maintains, nobody updates on a regular basis. 6 months of quietly wrong answers can be worse than a system that visibly broke instantly, right? If something breaks instantly, you can fix it instantly and you probably stem the bleeding there. But if something's been quietly screwing you over and answering questions wrong for 6 months, that's bad, and it's a lot harder to unwind.
All right, guys, takeaway time. One question. Is the answer to your question a fact, a behavior, or a passage? Facts get looked up in the system that already holds them. Never put a fact in a RAG system. That's the expensive mistake. Passages are what the second brain are for, and RAGs are generally very good at. Behaviors are just instructions you never got to writing down. This is free. You don't need to spend money with a provider on that.
RAG is one of 6 ways to kind of search and access your information. 3 of the 6 cost you nothing, just some time organizing your information. If a proposal starts right at the expensive one, ask what happened to the cheap free ones first to get you going, right?
Second brain is information about your business that your AI tool needs. RAG is how the tool finds it, right? So Google search on top of your file structure system, your data. Organized well enough, you might not need that search function at all. The AI can do it without the RAG most of the time for a small business.
Yeah, and could you build a RAG system for your business? Absolutely, and some of you should. But should you, before you've sorted your 10 questions and named your files properly and your questions? Probably not. And that's the cheapest advice we'll give you probably all season. Like, analyze your stuff first and find out what you really need before you buy the expensive, fun, shiny tool.
Remember, our goal here is to provide the real world answers from a will I or won't I perspective of a brick and mortar small business owner, right? Everybody in the AI space wants to sell you the complicated version because the complicated version is what has a larger invoice to it. The really kind of simple, boring truth is that most small businesses get that 80-20 rule, right? Get 80% of the benefit from organizing better what you already have and then handing that over to the AI. That's what this series and the AI OS series is all about. Do the boring part first, guys. Do the legwork first. I understand if you're busy, you really want to outsource that because you're so flush with cash, you don't know what to do with it besides lighting it on fire. You can do that. Yeah. You can do that. There's plenty of people, and I get it. I get it. There are businesses where you are just so busy. That makes sense. That is financially effective for you. However, you don't need to. If you still need the expensive thing, you'll know exactly what you're buying and why you are buying it.
Yeah, exactly. Next episode, we're going to do the version of this that you can set up yourself, and it probably takes maybe 20 minutes, right? So we're going to talk about custom GPTs, projects, and gems. Whatever your tool, like they're all kind of, custom GPTs, projects, gems. Your tool might have a different name for them, but it's pretty much the same idea across all the products. None of that plumbing, and Paul's been running one for his academy for a year now. So check that out.
As we said before, free school community, links down below in the description, guys. Join us there for the conversation. We are starting live video calls weekly very, very soon. So here on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell. We're dropping a new episode every single week, sometimes 2 whenever we can, because we have so much free time in our lives. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.